Thank you for tuning in to the BIRNN Community Chronicles, the Blue Island and Robbins Neighborhood Network. This is a show about you. We bring together community members, leaders, and organizations to drive the change you want to see in Blue Island and Robbins. Now, here's your host, Program Manager for the BIRNN, Ken Benson.
Good evening and welcome to the BIRNN Chronicles, the show of Blue Island Robbins Neighborhood Network. This evening we have with us some guests from Pathlights who are going to tell us a little bit about themselves and the work that they do, who they serve, and where they serve. So I'm giving them an opportunity to introduce themselves, their position at Pathlights, and talk a little bit about what brought you to Pathlights and the work that you're doing. So I'm going to start here to my right with Miss Rogine. So please introduce yourselves to our listeners and our viewers.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening. As Ken introduced, my name is Rogine. I work in community relations, and I've been with Pathlights just a little over a year now. What brought me to the organization was I had a personal need. My mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I reached out to Pathlights as I felt that they were a trusted source and I needed some help on choosing an adult day center for my mother. I was a single, well, still am. I was single mom of two and working full time. I just recently took my mother in, so I needed some help for during the day. And they were great. They're fantastic. The caseworker that was assigned to me was wonderful. I still have her business card.
Wonderful.
So I did that. I worked with them. Everything turned out well. And then I found that they had a volunteer group called the Ambassadors. So I joined the Ambassadors in 2019, and there was an opening. So I took an opening and worked in community relations.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful,
And
wonderful.
I've been on a high since then, and it's fantastic working and giving back. I feel my own personal experience helps me in helping others find resource. I can connect personally with folks that need help and give some advice along the way.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. I think a lot of us that do social services in some way we've been affected by something in life that have brought us to this work. And so it's wonderful to know that not only could you have gotten help for your mom, but you found a career in what the place that you were seeking out help. So it's a wonderful thing. So to my left, I want to introduce Christine. So Miss Christine, please introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you and your position and what brought you to Pathlights.
Thank you, Ken. I actually have a degree in public relations and mass communication. So I used that for a while early in my career, but then I went back and got a master's in education. So I actually switched from teaching children to coming into this role to teaching adults just over 10 years ago. And at this time, I'm managing our community outreach and community relations through Pathlights. And my position is one where not only do I do outreach to community members that we're serving and to the caregivers and the grandparents raising grandchildren, but I also am in a position to work with agencies like BIRNN, other nonprofits, and then professional groups, but to bring all of that together to provide quality programming and education, to provide resources to not only the people in our communities, but also to our staff members, and to act as a liaison between the professional community and the nonprofit community.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about Pathlights, like maybe the core services that Pathlights offers to older adults and their caregivers? And this is for either person. So jump in and piggyback or however you guys want to do it. But I'm sure our listeners and our viewers would love to know the services because we heard older adults, so we assume that Pathlights, their services are for older adults. So yes, tell us about some of the core services that you offer to
Sure.
the.
And one of the things I want to dispel a myth up front, a lot of people associate nonprofits with low income. Our clients are not necessarily low income clients.
Okay.
We do serve a broad range. Again, these are some state, some federal, and some privately funded programs that we do offer. So what we do is we support people who are age 60 and over, those who are caring for them, and we try and keep them in their home as long as it's safely possible. And we do that by merging state, federal, and private programming. So one of the programs that we have is our community care program. So community care program, the state has licensed different in-home care companies to provide service for people who may not necessarily be able to afford that. That is an asset-based program, so it doesn't look at your income. We know that many people have saved for retirement, and then there's one catastrophic thing that goes wrong or a multitude, and they build on each other, and the money is going out faster than it's coming in. So the nest egg starts to dwindle. And when that starts to dwindle, we're able to go in and offer this in-home service. And it can be as simple as 3 to 5 hours a week, up to about 25 hours in a week. It's never full-time caregiving, but our case manager goes in, they assess the person, they find out what their needs are. They will ask them questions. It's on a preset form, but then they come up with a determination of need. And based on that, the in-home caregiver can go in. They can help with errand running. They can help with bathing. They can help with toileting, laundry, cooking, things like that. So, and then it's also important because the person's getting somebody beyond family or close friends in, and they have somebody else they have conversations with. So you're looking at the mental health aspect of that as well. And you're keeping someone in their home. They're not having to go into a skilled nursing facility where they don't truly belong. They get to stay in a community that they're familiar with and that they're safe with. And we feel that that program specifically benefits communities as well, because you need the older adults who can tell you the traditions of the neighborhood. You need the older adults who are home during the day and provide a safety network for the neighborhood, because they're the ones watching out. They know when the children next door get home. They know what's going on. They know when people are in the community that shouldn't be there. So that's one of our biggest programs there. With that, there's also the home delivered meals program. So home delivered meals can go to people on community care, but it's for those people who maybe just can't provide proper nutrition for themselves. And that little bit of assistance is what keeps them in their home.
Okay.
So we noticed a big upswing in that during COVID, because people who carpooled with other people were no longer able to do that. People who accessed the food pantry with another person were no longer able to do that. So our numbers have increased significantly in home delivered meals. And the people also get a well-being check, essentially, because someone's showing up at your door a few times a week. And if they notice there are changes in the client, our volunteers for that program are wonderful. And they'll come back and they'll make a report and they'll say, I saw this person today. They were in the same clothes that they were in. They don't look like they bathed. Maybe we've actually found people who have fallen and have been laying there since the prior night. When they didn't answer the door, the person kind of looked around and figured that out. So that in itself, as simple as it seems, as handing you a meal, it's a way to make sure that you're safe. And it's a way to make sure that we're engaged and that you're engaging with somebody outside of your home. We do have a program for caregivers, which was the one that Rogine was referring to. That in itself is a program that a lot of people overlook. I always tell people when I give our presentation, if somebody comes into your work and you have a child who was sick, they're offering support, they're offering condolences, they're bringing meals, people are rallying together. Your neighborhood is doing that. When you have a parent who needs your attention, or another relative or neighbor, you're not getting that support. You might not even get support from family. People don't realize that caregiving, especially when it's a 24/7 job, that can really deplete the energy. It can deplete the physical health of the person who is the caregiver. And they may be left feeling like, I don't have time to look for this, this, and this, and these are the supports that I need. So we have case managers who specifically work with people who are caregiving. We offer some holistic self-help classes for that. How do you beat the stress that goes along with caregiving? What's out there? Rogine mentioned there are adult day services. So there's a program, a respite program through the caregiver program. And what that does through the state, it provides somewhere between 80 and 100 hours in a year at this given time. That can change. But with that program, we can offer time for the caregiver to regroup, to have time to themselves, to go shopping. If you're caring for someone who needs to be put into a wheelchair and put into a car and then transferred back, we do caregiving for these people with love. But when there gets to be a time where you just need to go out and do something independently, and that person is not able to accompany you, you can use this respite time to get out of the house. And again, it's a professional caregiver who comes in. Our care is always non-medical, but they will stay with the person and you can get a break. It may be as simple as going to see a grandchild's baseball game. It may be going out for a birthday party that you're not able to transport your loved one to, something along those lines, just to bring something back. We have a memory cafe. So if you're caring for someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia, any type of cognitive decline, your relationship changes. And the memory cafe gives you a chance to reconnect as mother-daughter, as father-son, as spouses. And just for that short period of time, we're doing something together. We're listening to music. We're working with music therapy, crafts, things like that. But we're together in a capacity that's not me caring for you at that particular time. So we do look at it, and we look at the entire picture, and that caregiver program is specifically for the caregiver. Now, that program, there is no financial vetting for that program.
Okay.
So no means testing, because a caregiver should not have to pay to take a break. With that being said, we have another type of caregiver that we serve, grandparents raising grandchildren.
Okay.
So we know that that program recently changed, and the new name is Adults 55 and Over Raising Relatives.
Okay.
But we do have some people who actually neighbor children who have been left with them, and they have taken on the task. They are fully caring. It's not if a child lives with you and you're caring for your grandchildren with one of your adult children. You are caring for these children. You are the person who is going to make sure they get to school, that they have the things that they need. Again, there are some financial stipends that may come along with that, but with the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren program, we make sure that you have access to legal aid or things like that if you need to have documents produced. We can assist you through the process of obtaining birth certificates. You can't register for them. You can't go to a doctor and get their medical records to say, yes, they had all their immunizations. I need to enroll them in a new school if you don't have custody, legal custody. So we work through that with you by referring you. So again, we talked about networking early on.
Absolutely.
That's one of the ways that we pull in the networks that we're building by working through groups like BIRNN.
Okay.
And housing.
Okay, I have a
We have
question
housing.
because I know, and
Sure.
I know it's so many wonderful programs, and I want to continue to have those go forward and for you
Absolutely.
to tell us about. But Rosine, I have a question for you, and just in your experience, because I think for those of us who do services, sometimes I think we feel like the seniors are a forgotten population in our
Absolutely.
communities, and people, as they get older and they've raised their children and sometimes their grandchildren, I think people forget that they are still in need. So Rosine, my question to you is, and Christine mentioned the benefit of having older adults stay in their home. So in your experience working with some of the clients, what is a wonderful story of a client who was able to stay in their home and the benefit of them being able to acquire these services and still remain in that place that they feel comfortable in? So you have give us a story about something like that.
I have one encounter where actually it was a participant that came to one of our community events at the Tools for, I can't think of the title, the Tools for Aging Adults, where we had a presenter come and talk about different things that they could do in the home to keep the adults at home safely. And one lady shared with me that she was happy that she was able to remain at home. She did have some modifications done to her home, such as installing the handrails, the bars in the bathrooms, a ramp at her door, some of these simple things, suggestions and recommendations by folks such as the Tools. I can't think of the name of the company that did that, but the Slip and Fall folks that did a presentation and pointed out some of the things that were unsafe for folks that want to remain in their home. And she went on, shared with me that staying at home gives her like a sense of security. She wants, gives her a good feeling that, folks need a reason to, for each day to endure and get out, and confidence.
Absolutely.
So through these things, these small things were done in her home, it gave her strength and confidence to go into her days. And I know that she did enjoy the presentation, and she also, she had a friend. She came with a friend, and she shared with a friend that the things that she had done in her home, and she brought her friend to listen to the presentation. I know Christine didn't get around to saying that another thing that community outreach does is we have these events and presentations in the communities that we serve, such as the libraries, community centers, park districts. And that's another way where we connect and can answer questions for folks about the things that we do and services that we have.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Christine, the one thing that I've been able to see with some of your work is some of the educational workshops that you guys do, and like even around technology. Can you tell our listeners and our viewers about some of those workshops and some of the things that you're doing to just continue to work with some of the seniors to teach them just the basics of working with a computer or things like that? So
I'm going to let Rogine answer that, because when
okay.
she started, she ran the tech program.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
we were just funded to continue it for 2.5 years. So we hired someone full time.
Okay.
But Rogine is the expert for that.
Rogine, come on, tell us about that.
Well, the program's called TechWise, and where I started was in Robbins and Blue Island, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And I went to the libraries and we sent out these like survey questions, finding out that folks, if there was a need, people are interested in having the TechWise program. And what the program made is it made it possible for people to navigate on the internet, connect with friends. And Ken, you wouldn't believe the people that I met didn't even have something as simple as an email.
Wow. Okay.
So we started out with the very basic. The program's it's 6 weeks. It's about basic programs and computers, such as an email, visiting something like the village of the city of Blue Island, or the website Village of Robbins.
Okay.
Where people can find information, they can pay their water bill, they can find out upcoming events that benefit them. And in the news, you can go on to Chicago or NBC. Some of the news radio station or the TV stations are on. They're online now.
Right.
So anyway, there's a 6 weeks program, and it goes through steps, and each step kind of builds upon one another. And then in the end, we are hopeful that a person can, send an email, go to Blue Cross Blue Shield or Advocate and make an appointment, or follow up with a doctor's visit, access their medical records. It was really wonderful. My first class at Robbins, I believe I had seven folks.
Wow.
And then Blue Island, I think we had 7 as well, but then we had a waiting list.
Okay.
So it was very successful. And then, we moved on. We have it at Bridgeview. It went on to Chicago Ridge. It's a great program. It really brought fulfillment to folks' lives.
I think that's fantastic. I think technology, it just continues to evolve. And, for even younger people, like you learn something one day and the next day is something different. So I know that's empowering, just to be able to say, I can use technology. I think, even from my experience with just some of the seniors in my family, technology is something they try to stay away from. They still want to write checks. They still want to read physical newspapers, and just trying to get them to that place where they can actually get online and they can make an appointment for the doctor, or they can access an email, I think is a very empowering thing. So I think that's a great program. And if people are, you said you were funded again for that program. So if people who are listening, they're interested in getting an older adult signed up for that program, how would they do that?
So we are about ready to start up our next program in Blue Island and Robbins.
Okay.
So the best way would be to connect with the libraries. That's where the RSVPs are being taken, and the registration forms are being, you can access a registration form. So you'd visit the Blue Island Public Library and the William Leonard Public Library, which is in Robbins. Both of them have websites. You can look up their information for their phone numbers. I don't have them in front of me. But we would also be, I believe next week we're starting, actually within the next couple of weeks, we're starting them both up in Blue Island, Robbins. I think the next session is going to be starting up at Chicago Ridge Public Library.
And how long is the program again?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. And do you have to have any skills before you come into the program, or just the ability to want to learn?
None. You don't even have to bring your computer or laptop. We provide those things for you.
Wonderful.
But yeah, the best way to learn about the next sessions would be at the library. And as I mentioned, the next one's coming because I believe the Robbins and Blue Island ones are filled.
Okay.
The next ones I think are coming up would be Chicago Ridge and Bridgeview. You could also check that out on our website.
Okay. And
Pathlights.
can you give us the website?
Yeah, Pathlights, www.pathlights.org. It's going to be under our events tab.
Okay.
You could also call the office and ask for Jason.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, Christine, you
Yes.
were running into those programs. So I know there are more programs that we have. So please continue on and let us know. I just wanted to make sure that people know of those programs that I know about, that I just find to be so interesting and empowering for older adults. So continue to let us know some of the things that
Sure.
Pathlights is doing with in community.
Actually, if I can tag on to the programming.
Okay. Wonderful.
One of the things that we found very helpful, we've been hosting attorneys. So we never will align ourselves with like a specific business or this or that, but we do have people who will come forward as volunteers. The nice thing about attending our programs is that we don't share names with the presenter, and the presenters know that up front.
Okay.
But our presenters are phenomenal because they will answer questions. We've been getting a lot of questions about what do I do? Do I need a will? Do I need this? So we've been doing a lot of legal programs.
Okay.
And then the attorneys have been great about explaining the value of having their advanced directives or power of attorney. Because a lot of what we're finding are people don't have those in place. So if I went into the hospital and I wasn't able to make my decisions, who is going to make that for me?
Right.
You know, we have a lot of people with families who are estranged, but they will contact that family member first. So what we're doing with our programming is educating you on ways to stay at home, but also giving you valuable information about how do you continue to protect yourself? How do you protect your health? It might be a health specific program, but it might be something talking about getting the power of attorney for healthcare.
Okay.
How do you protect your finances? We're bringing Katie Walsh from the Sheriff's Department over to Alsip Library to talk about scams, because we don't deal with scams, but Katie is going to go in and she will talk all about the scams. What are the triggers? When Rogine was doing the tech class, one of the classes deals with how do you know a legitimate website versus a scam?
Right.
Because a lot of people don't use technology because of that. So if someone is not tech savvy, but they need the list, we can send them a list of our programming, but we want people to continually let us know what the needs are in the community. And we will find some way to access an expert in that area. And then we'll get that into play.
Wow. And I'm glad to hear you talk about scams, because I've just personally experienced with some of the elders in my family, people calling saying that they represent Medicaid or Medicaid or Medicare, whichever one that is, and trying to get their social security number or get their information or get their number. And, you know, just being a trusting person, like, hey, I'm gonna give them that information, come to find out that that is a scam. So I'm so happy that you guys are touching on that, because I think getting to a place, again, it kind of really goes to technology and not knowing who's on the other end of that phone and being able to say, no, this is, you know, I know that you wouldn't call for my information, or I don't have to give my information over the phone. So I think that is a wonderful thing for older adults. So what else do we have to offer, I think?
We do have housing.
Okay.
So we don't run any housing, but we have a person who works with a program that's very specific to our agency.
Okay.
Not too many have it around the state. It's called shared housing. So essentially it's roommate matching.
Oh, wow.
So think Golden Girls.
Okay.
Everybody who is participating needs to be self-sufficient. It is not as expensive as renting an apartment at this time.
Okay.
Because you don't have to have the first and last month's rent.
Okay.
So you negotiate shared expenses with the person. We do make sure that both parties are compatible.
Okay.
It's not an overnight thing. It's not emergency housing.
Okay.
We do not have any capability of finding emergency housing for anybody.
Okay.
But what it is it's essentially, I am a provider. Maybe I have a 3-bedroom, 4 or 5-bedroom home. There are a lot of large families in the areas we serve. And so there's larger homes. I don't necessarily want to leave, but I could be lonely. Maybe I travel. Maybe I'm still working. I don't want that house left alone. So I bring in somebody who will share the home with me.
Wow.
And then we negotiate space in terms of, you know, my favorite show is on at this time, so please stay out of the living room, but you can access the den. That sort of thing. You know, I don't like to cook. You love to cook. I'll do the dishes.
Wonderful.
So it can be as independent or as enmeshed as the people would like it to be.
Wow.
So that's a great program. And our housing person also will talk about housing options, explain what's supportive living, Where is it? What do you do in this situation? And again, going back to networking, if someone is being threatened with eviction, then we can connect them to attorneys who will do that. And
Wonderful.
usually if you're in that sort of a situation, you're looking for an attorney who will do it at low or no cost.
Okay.
So we're able to provide those contacts, and then we hand it off to somebody in the legal who can handle that.
Wonderful.
Landlord tenant issues in general. Your heat's getting turned off, but you can show that, that you've been paying the bills and it's on the landlord's end, then we can work with that as well. But we would, again, do it through referring through the networks that we've built.
Okay.
In addition, one of the last things that we always like to touch on is adult protective services. So you were talking about scams.
Right.
Adult protective services differs from scams because scams are usually a one-time thing. They could go on for a period of time, but it's an outside person. They're targeting multiple people.
Right.
Adult protective services comes in when someone is targeting you.
Got it. Okay.
So we are investigators for that.
Okay.
Now, our adult protective services, and we have a program that works with financial support programs. Those two programs are also for people who are 18 and older who have a permanent disability and they're living in a private setting.
Okay.
So our adult protective services and financial are both for that, and people 60 years and older.
Okay.
So I can give you some examples of what our adult protective service investigators will look at. So physical abuse, that is obvious usually because there will be marks, or you might see the person put their hands up in a defensive, like if you were walking toward me.
Right.
That one, a lot of times doctors will identify that. We want to make sure that professionals as well as community people know the signs.
Okay.
So emotional abuse, how would you ever know if I were being emotionally abused? Well, let's say we're neighbors, Ken.
Okay.
And you and I usually, we used to read the newspaper, now it's online, but we're old fashioned. So we want to get that paper newspaper, right? We meet every day as we're walking down our driveways and we talk about our kids and this and that and what they're doing. Well, all of a sudden you notice that I have somebody who's with me.
Okay.
And that person's now walking out with me. And when you're asking me how things are going, you hear them saying, just shut up. Just don't talk to him. We don't want to know what's going on in the house.
Okay.
You're stupid. If you say something to him, you're going to embarrass yourself.
Okay.
That would be emotional abuse.
Absolutely.
And it's like when you're raising a child, when you tell them something and it's negative, you're pounding and pounding and pounding, and they begin to believe that. So that's just one example of what emotional abuse would be. We have deprivation. So there are two types. One is where willful deprivation, I know that Rogine needs to use a walker to safely get down her stairs and to get into the car. And I'm saying, Rogine, you are just using that to get sympathy. You don't need it, and I won't give it to her.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm her financial power of attorney. Oh man, every time we go to the doctor, they are giving us more and more medications. You're not going to get them this time because you know what? You're not going to live much longer anyway. There's going to be less money for me to inherit. So that's also financial exploitation. But I'm not giving you something you need. We talk about confinement. Now, one of the worst cases we ever had was a family had an older adult who had Alzheimer's, and they didn't know that there were supports in place to support the family, and they didn't know what to do. So what they ended up doing was they would tie the person's hand and then tie it to a pipe because you can't really pull a pipe out of the wall. And they would leave them in the utility room with a mattress on the floor because nobody knew how to handle them. They were tired. They were overwhelmed. They weren't sleeping because the person wandered. We can get supports in place. We can educate you about the mats that have buzzers that will wake you if the person gets up. It's not the way to do it. And one thing a lot of people don't think about with confinement is if I'm caring for somebody and they're not mobile and I don't make provisions for someone to be with them and I leave them in the house and I lock the doors, they're confined to the house. And if, God forbid, there should be a fire or something, they can't get up. So we did have a family where it was mutually agreed upon that an elderly gentleman would sit in the recliner during the day. There was a cooler there. He was kept clean. The spouse would run home during lunch and change his undergarments. But that man could not get up. He had the remote. So it's social isolation. That's a great place for adult day services to step in, because you're getting the person out and getting socialized.
Right.
So sometimes it's purposeful. Sometimes it's a matter of re-educating the caregiver or the family members.
Okay.
Now, the newest two are people who are self-neglecting.
Okay.
So maybe I'm not cleaning myself. Maybe my place is getting hoarded. It's things like that.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that people understand when I'm talking about self-neglect. There are some people who will hoard with garbage and things like that.
Right.
We go into other homes and there may be just pathways through boxes. So
Right.
the person couldn't get out if the paramedics came.
Right.
But what we find is happening with some of these cases is I'm from a family of 7.
Okay.
Multiple nieces, nephews, and that. But sometimes as our siblings pass, the children don't want their stuff.
Right.
But they can't bear with just tossing it. So then they start dropping it off at one of the aunts or uncles' homes.
Absolutely.
Well, this should stay in the family. I think you should get it next.
Right.
And we've had that. And we have people who grew up just after the Depression and that. And for them, the banks weren't safe. So they're worried, oh, maybe my sister put money in the shoe boxes. Maybe there's something here. Maybe there's letters that I need. Maybe the will is in here.
Okay.
So we get hoarding cases like that.
Okay.
Also, not taking medication that we're prescribed.
Right.
That's self-neglect.
Definitely.
Walking around in inappropriate clothing outside. We'll get
Right.
calls from police departments for that.
Right.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have abandonment, and that's the newest.
Right.
And a very sad case of abandonment was a caregiver who took in mom during COVID. So they were working from home. And then one of the couple lost their home. So they said, we'll be home. One of us isn't working. We'll bring mom here. It'll help save rent, because the family had been helping to support the mother in independent living. So a job opportunity came up in California, and the family did not want to take the mother with. And they called all the siblings and they said, you've got to step in. It's your turn to help. Nobody would help. So the solution was to pack mom's things up and wheel her to one of the homes of a sibling, and then get back on the road to go and call and say, you deal with it now.
That is
abandonment.
That's crazy that something
It
like
is
that
crazy.
actually happens. Wow.
And this is in our area. We live in nice areas, and it's happening. So there is no, for adult protective services and any of the services needed, there's no, you can't say it doesn't happen in this community because of what we have. It doesn't happen here because we have a lot of neighborhood groups that come together. It happens. It happens all over. It happens for reasons that those of us not in the situation will never understand. And it happens because a lot of families are in distress over what's happening, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know to call us. So that's why we encourage anyone just to call our main number.
Can you give us the main number? Okay, give us the
708-361-0219.
Okay, is there a specific person they should ask to speak with, or is that just a
No.
general number and that person that answers can direct them to where they need to go?
The front desk will triage the call, essentially.
Okay.
They'll ask some questions, and then normally, unless somebody is already assigned with a case manager,
Okay.
it will go to our intake person.
Okay.
And they will take a written message and they'll pass it on, because our intake spends a lot of time with each call.
Wonderful.
So rather than being interrupted every time a new call comes in, the front desk will get as much information as they can. What's the situation? Who needs assistance? What's the age? And the same, well, adult protective does get put through immediately.
Okay.
Normally.
Okay.
But, and there's a state number for that, which I didn't think to bring with me. So I apologize.
That's okay. We'll
But,
get it out there.
With the front desk, they'll ask the questions to take that off, so that the intake person, so that they have a background and they can start pulling resources immediately.
Okay.
They can help determine whether it's something we can help with, or can we do a warm handoff to another group
Okay.
that would be able to assist.
So I guess my question is, just being an older person and calling this line, how long is the process in order to access some of the services? Because I think sometimes in our communities, people want this quick reaction, and if they don't get this quick reaction or quick result, then they just tend to leave it alone and walk away from something that can really be life changing. So the process, if there's a listener or somebody that's watching this evening and they have an older adult, what's the process, the time of the process? I guess even feeling comfortable, because I know you said intake, but just even feeling comfortable that like I can make this phone call and I can get this help, and there'll actually be somebody there to listen. There'll be somebody there who is willing to help. And because I don't know what to do with my older adult, or even if I'm getting to that place, how can I, what would the process be to have somebody walk me through that till I'll feel comfortable, like, okay, I'm really getting the help that I need?
That's a good question, because a lot of times people are hesitant to make the call.
Right.
So making the call doesn't obligate you to anything.
Okay.
We will have to ask specific questions, and usually a case manager, if the services are appropriate, will contact you to do an in-home screening within about 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
Now.
Okay.
Again, as all businesses, we are in the process of continually hiring,
Right.
but we're very careful when we do our hiring, because we're sending you into somebody's home.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of training that goes with it. So at this point in time, with the case managers that we have, it's about 2 weeks for them to get into the home to get those started. Now, with the meals, it may be a shorter period of time. We do have case managers in the 3 hospitals that are in our service area, and you can meet with somebody there. So the doctors or nurses will identify someone, and our case managers will go into the rooms. They might be able to get up the supports. Maybe you only need the meals for 6 weeks upon discharge. We can get those started in a faster manner when we do that process.
Wonderful.
And then too, for the programs that we don't have, please understand that when we do the warm handoff, we don't have control over other schedules.
Right.
So for our particular services, it is about 2 weeks. And again, we do have to follow the state and federal rules or the private funders rules that go along with these. So we always say we're not writing the rules, but we have to follow
No,
them.
I think that's fair. Rosine, I have a question for you. I'm listening, I'm watching this evening, and I want to volunteer. I want to go, and I find this work to be intriguing. I think that there may be some use for me as a volunteer. What roles are there for volunteers with Pathlights? And if I want to volunteer, how would I go about that process? What's that process as a volunteer?
So there's a couple places. I mentioned the ambassadors. I joined the ambassadors in 2019. Actually, we still have that group. And they meet monthly. Christine mentioned the phone number, so you could call Pathlights at our 708-361-0219 and ask to speak to Allison regarding joining the ambassadors.
Wonderful.
I believe on our website there's a tab also for volunteers. And you can learn about what we do, the time that's spent. As I mentioned, the ambassadors meet monthly. They come together and do events. We have one that's coming up. It's called the Coat Drive. Not certain. I'm not in that committee, but there's it's coming up pretty soon.
Wonderful.
Obviously, it's going to collect coats and give the folks
Blankets.
under.
Blankets.
Blankets. I'm so sorry. Blanket Drive. I was thinking of another organization that was doing a coat drive. There is also the home delivered meals program. Are we still looking for volunteers for that?
Wonderful.
So that's also on our website.
Will they use their own vehicles for that, or
they use their own vehicles and
okay.
they get a stipend to cover gas?
Okay.
And you can also inquire of that on our website. Or use the phone number and ask for information on volunteers for the meal program.
And I would assume that any volunteer would go through an extensive background check because of the population.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening and you want to volunteer, understand that you will have to go through a background check. And I think that's fair because of the population of folks that we are working with. We want to make sure that, as you say, Christine, we're interacting with older adults. We're going into their homes, and we want to make sure that people are safe and not being taken advantage of.
Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. There is a check for that.
Wonderful.
Also, you mentioned I was mentioning about the ambassadors and another group. We also have folks are out there listening, and they work for a company, or there's a boss or a leadership team looking for not only ambassadors but a way to get the word out about what they support or what they believe in, if they want to join us and sponsorships.
Okay.
We have fundraisers that we do from time
Wonderful.
to time. We actually just had one a few months ago in Oak Lawn at the Fox's restaurant. It was trivia night. It was awesome.
Wonderful.
Christine
wonderful.
was part of the winning table.
All right. Winners.
And it was a really great time. We
Wonderful.
sold out. The tickets were, there was a cost for tickets, and it covered the meal, and we had raffle prizes. We had split the pot. It was a really great night and very successful. So we're planning actually another trivia night. So just be on the lookout for that on our website.
Wonderful. It seems like that website is full of information.
It is.
It is.
Give us the website one more time, just for the people, so they can write it down in case they didn't get it before.
It's www.pathlights.org.
Wonderful. So tell us about some upcoming events. We have a little bit to go here. So tell us about some upcoming events that will take us into the fall or the winter that Pathlights may be doing or planning. It may not be there, maybe save the date, but something that you guys maybe that you may have coming up that we should tell our listeners about.
Well, I know we have Pathlights 101 at Hometown Public Library coming up on
Tonight.
Is it tonight?
It's tonight. Okay.
Tonight.
Okay. You may be a little bit late after listening to this, but
that's okay.
Okay.
Get that information is on our website. I believe
Wonderful.
it starts at 6.
Is that a reoccurring event that happens?
is.
Okay.
It is a reoccurring event, but we have different locations where we have it.
Okay, and those locations are on the website. So if
They
people want to
are.
be involved, okay.
But if someone's a member of a senior group or a community group, we can go in and give that presentation. So for instance, we just got called by the Blue Island Police. We're going to be presenting at one of their neighborhood watch meetings.
Wonderful. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Because we want the people who are out and about in the community to take the word to the people who aren't. Because you're trusted. As my
Right.
neighbor, I
Right.
trust you to bring me reputable information.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we will be doing that. But Pathlights 101, you can request that for a group.
Okay, wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful. So I guess my other thing, and because I know sometimes we talk about just some of the things that like really impact the seniors, but the one thing I always want to make sure that our listeners know, to hear this impactful, wonderful success story that has happened with some of the people that folks serve. So Rogine or Christine or both, can you give our listeners just this impactful, wonderful story of how Pathlights has really transformed one of the people who you service, their lives? So let us know about that. I always want to make sure that we get the great story out there so people know that these programs and these services are really impactful. So either one or both, you can give us 2 stories. We got a few moments left.
Okay.
So
I just have a really quick one to
Okay,
share.
okay.
And it comes from my TechWise programs.
okay.
I will say the folks in Robbins, I'm just going to use those ladies out there as an example.
Okay.
They were, first of all, that was one of my first tasks as Pathlights assigned me, which
Okay.
I embraced with open arms. I became connected to that community. I feel like they're friends. I've
Wonderful.
met a few community leaders in that area.
Okay.
And the ladies I grew to know, I would see them. Actually, I saw a couple of them at the store, would wave at me, Rogine.
All right.
I've actually saw a few folks out in the neighborhood.
Wonderful.
And so my impact, I feel like from that is not only, getting to know folks. I spent time there. Again, as I mentioned, the program was 6 weeks. I have returned since the TechWise program ended. I've actually, we were able to come out to the Robbins neighborhood and make we've had other events. I've worked with the community, it's not a park district, it's a community.
The community center.
Yeah, the community center.
Okay.
And we've also joined. We joined in on the Juneteenth.
Okay.
So I've made actually I look forward to some of the things that they have now annually.
Wonderful.
There was a back to school drive that Christine donated and participated in.
Wonderful.
The Juneteenth, as I mentioned, they have a Labor Day celebration. They have a Hispanic celebration.
Wonderful.
So some of these things have actually, even though it's only been a year, I've really just kind of delved in and jumped into some of these things that they participate in, they look forward to, and I do too. So I really enjoy that connection for Robbins. I can only speak of Robbins because that's really my first spot I started at. And I
right.
really, I feel like I connected with the group, the ladies. The takeaway for them was obviously learning about the internet, what pointed out an awareness for scams, helped them with their phones. They all brought their cell phones, and how do I do this on my cell phone? And
Wonderful.
that to them was, as I mentioned earlier, empowering.
And I think in social services, being out in community, being present, that's how you build trust. Everything that we do in community and social services and service is trust. You got to let people know. So the fact that they saw you out when you weren't working and they were able to say, hey, how are you doing? That means that there's a trust that's being built. So I really appreciate that story. Christine, what do you have for our listeners?
Well, and building on the trust, the home delivered meals, we call that kind of our foot in the door program. Because a lot of times people are resistant to social services. It has a negative connotation when you say social services. But then they begin to build the trust with the driver, and then they're introduced to more services. So we call that kind of our foot in the door program. But Rogine brought a copy of the Journey magazine. That's an annual publication that we do to celebrate Older Americans Month. And there's a story in there of a person who utilizes multiple programs through our agency. And it's a grandmother who is raising two granddaughters who are now, one's a teen, I believe one's a preteen. So she got connected with us, I believe maybe through a social worker at one of the schools, found out about our programs and enrolled in it. So through that, she was able to access, again, she was able to help get access to their medical records, to be their legal guardian, that sort of a thing. So once all that was established, then she moved forward and participated in some of the support groups. So who knows more about raising a grandchild or a relative that you've brought in than somebody who's in your position? So the support groups are more of the attendee sharing and not necessarily bringing in a formal presenter. We will do that. And there are case managers who are well trained on site for those to keep the meetings moving ahead and the topics appropriate. But the people who are the attendees who are needing the services really cluster together. And through that, you also learn, well, I go here for this and I access this place for summer care or a summer camp. Once that was established, the woman obviously is an older adult and she's aging. And now you're raising grandchildren who are teens. It's very stressful on you physically. So she became not incapacitated, but her health declined a bit and she needed some of our services. So then she qualified for our in-home services. So we were able to support her in the home so she could remain with the grandchildren in a home that's clean and safe. These two granddaughters, this woman is so hands-on. I aspire to be her. She led them in exercise every day, and she has a regimented after school time where they do this and they do this, and they have a lot of family time. Having that caregiver support through the community care program in place allowed her the freedom to be able to continue that. Because what would happen to these two girls who aren't old enough to be on their own if something happened to her? And even if another relative was willing to take him, there's another disruption in their life. So for her to get into both programs was all she needed to be able to stay in her home, to have the girls with her, and to be able to kind of keep everybody's life on an even keel.
Wow, that is so wonderful. I am so just I'm just touched and impressed by all of the services that you guys offer. Again, if you are listening tonight, if you are watching and you have an older adult, and the one thing that I did want to ask, because I know you talked about grandparents raising grandchildren, and you started at the age 55. So I am an older person, maybe 55, 56, 70, or maybe in my 60s. Do I qualify for those services? And what age do I start to be able to qualify for services?
So general services, it's 60.
60, okay.
But the grandparents raising grandchildren, that was renamed 55 and older, raising a relative.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily a relative.
Got
if you are 55 and you are raising a child who is not your child by birth or adoption, you should call our agency, see what supports are available.
So many times in our communities, we find that our older adults have to step in because, their children or someone in their family has an issue that they may not be able to care for their children. You've raised your children, and now you're looking to kind of just go into your glory years, but now you are in this position where you have to step up and step in and to be able to take care of these children, and to know that there's a resource there to help is a wonderful thing. So we got about 6 minutes left. And so I want to make sure again that we give out information for people to be able to, and I love to always repeat the website and phone number so that people who are listening or watching will know I need to connect with Pathlights. So I'm gonna say, Rogine, give me the telephone number. You did it so well. And Christine, if you can give me the website. So we're just gonna team up and do this so people will know this is how we can connect to Pathlights. So,
Well, first of all, the phone number is 708-361-0219.
okay.
And you will be greeted with a live person. There will
All
be a
right.
person answering the phone. It's not
That's
an
important.
automation.
That's important. Yes.
Just want to make sure that people know that that is a plus for a lot of folks when they call
Yes,
places
absolutely.
to get an
Absolutely.
automated machine.
Absolutely.
But I also wanted to mention too, we have a save the date for our resource fair that's
Okay.
coming up, Pathlights in the Village of Bridgeview.
Wonderful.
That is on October 25th
Okay.
out at the Bridgeview Community Center
Okay.
from 10 to 1. We also have save the date for our 50th year gala.
50 years. 50
50
years. Wow.
years.
Wow. In existence.
And
That is wonderful.
that's coming up in May of 2025.
Okay.
So be on the lookout for, information on our website, which
All right.
Christine's going to give us, and we're on Facebook.
Okay.
So
Okay.
make sure you check out the Facebook page. It's under the same name, pathlights.org.
Wonderful. And Christine, give us that website again.
Sure. It's www.pathlights with an S. So pathlights.org.
Wonderful.
The
So we
org
got
is very important.
very, very important. So we got about 4 minutes left in our time. So I just wanted to give and I do this with all of our guests, to just kind of step back from this hosting thing and give you an opportunity to talk about, just make sure you get whatever point out that you want to get to our listeners, something about your work or something about the people that you serve, or just the importance of benefit of them connecting with the services that Pathlights offer. So I'm going to start with you, Rogine, going to finish up with you, Christine, and that will bring us to the end of our time. So.
Sure. As I mentioned, I came to Pathlights when I had a need, and certainly doesn't apply to a lot of folks. Maybe you just want information.
Right.
You just want to learn about the things, the services, the resource, the benefits that we offer. We gave the website, and come to an event. Go to our website and go to the events tab. I think that's the best way you can learn about us. There's many different topics out there, not only pertaining to older folks. I want to say, I feel like a lot of the things that we do, we offer the information like the estate planning, the tools for aging, the Medicare. Some of those things are applied to folks that are in their 50s.
That's true.
And not only that, the kids that are taking care of their parents.
All right.
Come on out and check us out. The events, I said, most of the events are 99% are no cost.
Okay.
We do have lunch and learns from time to time, but that there would be a small fee for that. But other than that, the events are free, led by professionals, and you should come and check it out.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that, Rogine. Christine, what do you want to just leave this impression on our listeners and watchers?
Ken, it's open enrollment.
Okay.
You're going to hear commercials all the time about
This
Medicare.
is true. So true.
So one of the volunteer opportunities we have is to train as what's called a SHIP counselor, SHIP. That is the counselor for anything needed with insurance. So even if you need to get into the basic healthcare plans that are not Medicare, but what we can do is explain them. So we're doing multiple presentations through October and November, because open enrollment is when you can change your Medicare D plan. So if I told you you could save thousands, you would want to do that.
Of course.
We literally had somebody who was so sick because they weren't taking their meds because they couldn't afford them. And the doctor just kept saying, now you got to take this, now you take that. What we do is an unbiased look at multiple programs, and we give you a list and we say, on this, if you stay on your program, this is your total out of pocket for the year. Here are some options. For that particular person, the difference was $115,000.
Wow.
They weren't taking them, obviously.
Wow.
So it's total out of pocket. Another person last year was around 7,100 was our high number. So don't feel that you have to stay in the plan because you know your broker, you've been best buddies, this kind of thing.
Right.
Every year you need to do it. There are many, many changes. I actually we have to go through multiple trainings. So I am a SHIP counselor. I'll be giving these presentations. We just had a 2-hour training and we're going to have another one. There are multiple changes this year and you need to keep up on it. If you're going into Medicare and you don't understand it, come to one of our Medicare ABCD, what is it? Presentations. We have those coming up as well, and we'll explain it. And these are great presentations for someone who feels that they are a caregiver or caregiving's in their future, but they're not on Medicare, because I need to know how to access it for the older adult that I care for who's
Right.
on it. And I need to know, if something happens, do I have to go to a specific hospital because of the plan they chose or this?
Right.
You don't want to be talked into a plan by a medical office. You don't want to be from somebody who sells a single type of plan. You want an unbiased look at it. So you either want somebody in the field who is a rep for multiple companies, or come to a SHIP counselor. Again, never an obligation. It's a very simple process. And every single year you should do this, because your medications change. So if you haven't gone to the doctor in a while, go to the doctor,
Go to
make
the
sure your
doctor.
medications are
Absolutely.
current for 2025. Kicks in immediately in 2025, but you have to do it during the open enrollment period, which would essentially be October, November, and a small piece of December.
Wonderful. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time.
Mhm.
I just want to let our listeners know, and thank you, Rogine, for coming out and share with us. Thank you, Christine. Rogine is new to us somewhat, but Christine has been with us for a very long time. I can't even imagine. I can't even remember how many years we've been working together for the BIRNN, but the organization has been there. And so thank you. Rogine is a new, wonderful partner who shares so much. And so we want to just thank you for your time. Remember, log in, go to the website, check out Pathlights. There is great information there for you. Thank you so much for attending and watching the Blue Island Robins Neighborhood Network BIRNN Chronicles, and we will talk with you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the BIRNN Community Chronicles. Catch us next Tuesday and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central.